Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I see folks coming on in through the waiting room, so we'll just give you 1 minute to get logged in. We are very excited to have you all for our session today. I think everybody's arrived. That is here right now with us. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Again, my name is Rebecca Cabas, and I serve as the director here on our Member Insights team at the Academy. I will be your moderator or MC for our session today. Winning strategies for unlocking perioperative growth using AI and automation. I will briefly set the stage for our conversation today, just providing some high-level context for you all, introduce our speakers, and then share some brief housekeeping notes before passing it over to them. So I would venture to say that our conversations related to service line growth and strategy have been some of the most interesting across this last year, really given everything going on in this space. COVID has certainly thrown us a few curveballs, from shutting down and restarting elective services to driving certain services away from the hospital into more ambulatory settings. And with all that's been shifting, it's creating some new access challenges and opportunities. But those two persistent needs, I would say, continue to be high on the priority list, irrespective of COVID. First is achieving best-in-class access to our health systems to be competitive and meet consumer demands. And second, excellent throughput so that we can get the most out of our capacity, including care teams, of course, which are stretched so thin these days, while also protecting our margins. In our session today, we're going to hear how one health system has partnered to create a technology-driven solution that utilizes AI and behavioral science to help optimize OR capacity, support new volumes, and streamline workflow for their teams, all contributing to more successful service line growth. So pleased to introduce our speakers who we'll have today. We keep moving forward. Great. So we have three fantastic panelists joining us today. First is Jane Peck. Jane is the Chief Operating Officer and Vice President of Clinical Service Lines of St. Luke's Hospital in Kansas City, one of the largest faith-based hospitals in the region and recognized by U.S. News and World Report as one of the elite hospitals in the nation. Previously, Ms. Peck served as the Executive Director of Cancer Care Services at Wentus Healthcare, and she also held roles in cardiovascular and oncology services at HCA Midwest Research Medical Center and Overland Park Regional Medical Center. Thank you for being with us today, Jane. I'd like to also welcome Dr. David Attashrew. Dr. Attashrew is the Managing Director of our perioperative business, wentus, where he has led the design and development of the new wentus Perioperative Solution, in addition to other product and clinical operational roles at that company. We also have Anthony Moorman joining us. Anthony is Director of Solution Marketing at wentus and has also co-led the design and development of the new wentus Perioperative Solution. So thank you all for joining us today, bringing your expertise and discussion. Briefly, we'll go over the agenda for our time today. So here's how we'll be spending our time, really just starting off with the background of the industry challenges, provide a live demonstration of the tool, discuss a bit about the impact that the tool is having at St. Luke's, and then want to make sure we're reserving sufficient time for Q&A at the end. So please feel free to submit your questions throughout the session through the chat box. I will be monitoring and then teeing them up for our presenters at the end. All of your lines have been placed on mute, so we do encourage you to submit your questions through the chat. And before I pass it off, just one more note, we are recording today's session and we'll be sending it out in follow-up along with the slides. So please look out for that in the next 24 hours or so. Without further ado, happy to pass it over to Jane. Please take it away.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you for the invitation to talk today. I'm really excited to share some of the work we've done here at St. Luke's. Just really quick, though, an introduction of the St. Luke's Health System. We are a faith-based, not-for-profit, integrated health system here in the Kansas City region. We've grown tremendously over the last few years within this health system, and we currently have 16 hospitals and campuses spread across the Kansas City region and in some of our outskirt areas. Our service area covers about 67 counties spreading between Missouri and Kansas, and we have a metropolitan area of about a little over 2 million people. We have about 12,000 employees here in the St. Luke's Health System. They are certainly dedicated, and our health system-wide net revenue is just shy of about $2 billion. Our vision here in St. Luke's Health System is to be the best place to get care and the best place to give care. We have a very strong focus on giving the highest quality care possible for our patients. And with that, we are very deeply committed to our employees in the health system as they help us uphold our mission and vision. We are also, just for anyone that is interested, we are an Epic user across our system, both in inpatient, ambulatory, revenue cycle. We've pretty much used Epic everywhere throughout the system. Briefly, just a little bit about St. Luke's Hospital, Kansas City, which is where I am the Chief Operating Officer. We are the flagship hospital here in the health system. We are the destination tertiary quaternary center. Our secondary service area spans to about 150 miles. We have a large perioperative service area here in this hospital. We actually have 3 separate OR departments in 3 towers, one dedicated to cardiovascular in our heart tower. We have a neurosurgical suite in our neuroscience tower, and then our main tower of the hospital is where we have our main OR. We are not, just to let everyone know, we are still not completely up to full utilization of all of our ORs post-COVID. We are still having to cap cases a couple of days a week, but we are working towards getting everything fully opened up. We still have quite a few COVID patients, either positive or some of those that are beyond their 14 days, but are still sitting in our hospital due to their COVID disease. Similar to many hospitals across the country, our perioperative services is a major focus in this hospital, as it is a significant contributor to our volume in the hospital and is certainly a big driver for our contribution margin. We are in a highly competitive market here in Kansas City with some major health systems here in the Kansas City market, along with St. Luke's. Given our strategy and all of the competitive dynamics, perioperative services has been a focus of ours over the last recent years, as we have really needed to try to work on improving the access into our ORs for our growing demand of our patients. We are considered the premier destination for that tertiary quaternary care that I had referenced, both in the health system, but outside the health system as well. And we've been challenged with trying to get all of the patients in that are in our queues and are wanting to be scheduled to have surgery here. And typically, when our surgeons start to see backlogs, their first conversation with us is, you need to open up more OR rooms. Well, one of the challenges that we face is certainly that we have to try to do more with less. And so it's not always the answer isn't open up more OR rooms. Our challenge is, how do you become more efficient and optimize the space you have and provide more care to more patients? So that is really the challenge that we have been facing. In our main OR area right now, we are actually, I've shared that we're not fully open in all of our towers, but our main OR right now, due to staffing more than anything, we are actually not fully open. We're running typically 9 to 11 rooms. 11 to 12 rooms is our max, but there are days, because we just don't have enough staff to support the rooms that we are running, we are down to 9. So that makes it even more important for us that we've got to figure out a way that we can really become more efficient and optimize our OR space, our scheduling, and really try to fully optimize the rooms that we are able to staff during the day. You know, the other piece that I'm sure we're all focusing on is strengthening our margins in general. You know, we really heavily rely on our perioperative services and the volumes and the types of cases that we are running through our ORs to be a big driver of the revenue for our hospital. So that in itself is one of our focuses: do more with less so we can strengthen the margins that are coming into the hospital. We're not for profit, so everything that we make profit on, we're able then to turn around and reinvest into our hospital. So in the past, we have tried several ways to optimize our OR space, including bringing in consultants. But you know, anything that we've tried to do in the past has really not stuck with us. When I entered this position in this space, we started talking that we needed to look at a new approach. We needed to go about this in a different way and really try to identify some significant strategies that would stick. So I thought I would share just briefly how we got to where we are today. We actually engaged our system project management office in helping us try to go through a lean process and try to identify ways that we can address efficiencies in our OR space and fully optimize our rooms that we have going. We started this project actually in early 2020, right before COVID hit the Kansas City area. And as we were working through this process, based upon the work that our project management organization was doing, we found very quickly that we needed to really focus on improving our case scheduling accuracy and optimizing the OR schedules for our rooms that we had. You know, as I would meet with physicians, often we would hear it is hard to get cases scheduled and into our OR, or the backlog of cases is so great. Our patients don't want to wait that long for their surgery. Another challenge that we had was around our block times. We have quite a bit of block time in our ORs, and our surgeons were not necessarily really good at releasing that block time. Either they forget to release it if they have a planned vacation, or they're afraid to release it too soon because just in case they may need it to get a patient in. So with those being some of the opportunities that we identified early on, we felt like we needed to start our focus there. We figure if we can fully optimize our schedules and get the day started right, with the right cases being done at the right time, that would really start to help the workflow and the efficiencies in the OR. As a planning team, we had talked about the idea of using a bot to help us in scheduling, because the OR scheduling is so much like a Tetris game. And we reached out to our IT department, and at that time we were really starting to get into the throes of COVID. Our IT department was incredibly stretched, probably very similar to a lot of yours. I mean, there's just so much digital work going on right now. They actually were not able to support us in what we were trying to get accomplished. So we really felt like this was an important initiative for us. And so we actually started to search outside our own health system to see if there were any resources that would make sense for us to partner with. And that is actually how we got connected with Wentus. And they were at that time looking at developing this innovation cohort. And so they were looking for partners for that. And we subsequently had our first meeting. Anthony, do you want to talk a little bit about the cohort?
Sure thing. Thank you, Jane. St. Luke's Health System joined us as one of 3 partners in what we call an innovation cohort, which is really the first wave of clients that go live on a new solution. We approach it this way to ensure that the products are built to cover a diverse range of partner needs and use cases. Throughout the process, we wanted to make sure that the job for schedulers and OR leaders became more manageable, and that health system leaders really saw progress towards their strategic goals. Once planning and configuration were complete, we invested heavily in training and monitoring to ensure that the solution was working as intended, and we're tracking towards those desired outcomes with each of our innovation cohort partners. And before we tell you about the solution, I'll do a quick blink and tell you a bit more about who we are at Wentus. So at Wentus, our mission is to simplify how healthcare operates. We do that by combining modern innovations in areas such as AI, machine learning, and behavioral science with deep expertise in healthcare across clinical operations, performance improvement, and change management. We're a proven partner, demonstrating success at more than 120 deployments across the country. And now, to add some context to the technology before we dive into the Perioperative Solution, I'll share a bit about how our platform enables sustainable results and rapid development of new interventions. First, some quick context on machine learning. Machine learning, or ML algorithms, are a subset of artificial intelligence, and they are predictions based off of historical data that improve over time as more data and input becomes available. And the foundation of our system is a real-time automation platform that integrates data from your EHR and enables you to manage operations as a closed loop system. First, the ML algorithms automatically predict and identify operational issues in real time as they're occurring, as well as in the future, predicting them before they occur. Next, actions are orchestrated using behavioral science-based techniques and process automation to complete tasks whenever possible. Finally, the system provides leaders with sophisticated statistical tools to manage accountability. And that platform's at the core of the system. So you'll really see it come through as we dig into the perioperative solution. On top of that automation platform, we developed best practice solutions for inpatient, emergency department, perioperative, and command center settings. These are predefined bundles of software together with proven operational processes and management practices for key areas of healthcare delivery. And finally, we work with you to establish governance, drive change management, and operationalize the solutions. And this is really important. We truly pride ourselves on being a strategic partner, not just another technology vendor. So on to the perioperative solution. Today, OR time is really locked up as a result of current manual processes and tools. And through an economic lens, you can view this as essentially an inefficient market where there's significant barriers for all stakeholders involved in OR time allocation. Surgeons with block time often underutilize that time, and they don't have an easy mechanism or incentive structure for them to give time back to the OR proactively. On the other hand, you have surgeons that don't have block allocation or insufficient block. They're constantly asking for more time, and they really want to feel like the OR teams are working and fighting on their behalf to create space for them to grow their practices, or else they're going to take their cases to a competitor who can do that for them. And then finally, the OR teams are caught in the middle of all of this, constantly under pressure and scrambling to fill late release open times with cases, which are often low value, first come, first serve cases that might not be ideal strategic fits for your health system. So this makes it nearly impossible for them to deliver on their strategic goals for the perioperative business. And as a result, nearly 30% or so of OR time is unused across leading health systems today. And that was the exact problem that we were trying to solve with our health system partners as we set out on this innovation cohort to build our perioperative solution. So let me tell you a bit about how we approached the problem. So in the status quo, which you see outlined here, you might have a doc 30 days out from day of surgery. They aren't going to use their block time. So they're either going to a conference or maybe they have a kid's sports game, but they haven't told the OR about this. Fast forward to 12 days out from day of surgery, you might have an independent doc, no block time allocation yet. They want to add on a highly aligned strategic case to the health system, but their office calls the OR and the OR tells them, sorry, we can't accommodate that right now. And they're forced to go back out into the market and find another place to perform that case. Fast forward to the day of the auto release, that block is then opened up. Now the pressure's on the OR team. They scramble to find any case they can to fill that time. And after a few rounds of outreach, they might get a case or two, but all too often that time goes unfilled. Then with the Cuventus solution, the way that it works is the access module automatically engages with and offers incentives to the surgeon as soon as the machine learning model has high enough confidence that the block will not be used. So in this example, that happens at day 21 out from the block, but it can be as far as a month out. Once the surgeon's office clicks accept and releases that block time, the growth module, which is constantly monitoring all open time in the schedule, automatically offers that time to the best fit surgeon, which is an example. In this example would be that independent doc looking to add a case so that on day 12, they have an offer in their inbox for a time that meets their needs, and all they have to do, or their office, is click accept. And so once they say, I'll add a case, the OR is notified and all of the steps in gray here are eliminated, and you have a high value case performed on schedule. Next, I'll let Jane tell you a bit about how that system works from the health system's perspective.
Thank you. I am the executive sponsor of this project here within our health system. So I can share at a high level the modules that are meaningful to me, but David is going to be able to dive into each one of these individually and truly be able to share with you how they work. The first, there are two modules, the access and growth, which are designed to work in tandem with reinforcement from the insights module. First, the access module uses that AI machine learning to automate the process of unlocking as much open time as possible within your existing block framework. The machine learning surfaces those blocks that are unlikely to be used, and then it uses principles around behavioral science to incentivize the release of those blocks. We call this nudging our surgeons to release their blocks. And we have really found a lot of success in this area. The growth module uses machine learning to identify and offer time to the best fit surgeon. It reduces the difficulty of the game of Tetris that our OR schedulers play on a daily basis. And it gives the schedulers the ability to find time that works for the surgeons, making the overall process more efficient. This was one of the big goals that we had, was trying to find the right space for the right surgeon. The beauty behind this is we are able to prioritize the types of surgeries that we would like to prioritize getting scheduled sooner than later. And then finally, Cuventus has put together some analytics around the performance of the solution, and they have provided us with metrics, real time. We can get into these metrics at any time, and it gives us the data that helps us to then have some really meaningful conversations with our surgeons. We've used this data as we identify those surgeons and those schedulers that are very high performing, and we celebrate the success with them. We also use the data to identify some of those schedulers or surgeons that are maybe not using it as much as we would like, and helping to reinforce and re-educate with them as well. We're also using this data during our surgical governance meetings, which is made up of our surgical leaders within our OR areas and anesthesia. And we are looking at this data together as we continue to develop the solutions and keep our focus on getting everyone to be using this tool. So without further ado, I'm going to kick this over to David and let you see the system in action.
Awesome. Thank you, Jane. Can everyone see me okay? Hear me okay? Cool. Great. So I'm going to jump in and kind of walk you through each one of these in a little bit more depth. So when we approach the problem of access, we actually first asked ourselves, how can we enable an intelligent machine to help you manage your block, with the goal of accelerating release times by an average of at least 7 days? What we imagined was what would it be like to not have to rely on your surgeons to remember to release? Because I know firsthand that that is not top of mind for me. It's not what's most important to me. So the solution we actually ended up building was a machine learning algorithm that's tailored to the block type, and it's always on, and it's predicting when is the first moment that we can actually predict with confidence that a surgeon or service might have time that they won't actually use. And really, again, going back to this, no surgeon wants to do this. So the key to getting this to work isn't just the ML, but it's how we leverage behavioral decision science to make that work. So let me show you kind of what that looks like. So here's an example here. So in this case, Dr. Norris and his scheduler receive a first prompt 17 days in advance of surgery, because that was the first moment that the algorithm could be confident that he had blocked that he may not need. But notice how we don't just ask the scheduler to release the time. We give them the reason why. So in this case, a prediction that there's only a 12% chance that they will need the time, and the direct benefit of them to taking the action in the moment, what we call the reward, which in this case is a 6% bump in utilization. Then in a single click, the scheduler can come in here and release the time to the surgeon's office. And then that intention is communicated directly back to the OR, who can then close the loop and release the time back to the grid. What we found is that at one of our partners, we automated 89 of these release reminders a month, releasing between 50 to 100 hours of block time per month. And that was actually at an average of 21 days out from the block date. And because of the other parts of the solution, which I'll dive into here in a second, we actually drove that up to about 70% utilization of that time, which I think could feel really meaningful for an org. Jane, any thoughts on that? I know you've had some experience kind of with this piece.
It is, I will tell you that it's been a key to us, because our challenge with our block times was our surgeons were not releasing it. And, we've gotten to a point now where in one of our last reviews with surgical governance, one of our managers made the comment that she's not seen our block time release this far out ever since she's been in our OR, and that's been for many years. So I think that we are finding that this is actually working, and the surgeons are taking advantage of it.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. I appreciate that. That's great context. So the next thing we did was this. Now that we had this available time, we started to ask ourselves, how might we actually develop an algorithm to recruit strategic cases to fill gaps in your schedule? And the goal here was really simple: add 1 to 2 cases per OR per month. And I think this is really flipping the script, because instead of being passive and waiting for time to come and then filling it first come, first serve. This is pushing out that time to actively engage the surgeons who would be the most actually strategic to fill that time. And that's what we built here with ATO, or what we call available time outreach. It's a machine learning algorithm that looks for any time there's an open block, or maybe there's a late release or a late cancellation. And it predicts who are actually the best surgeons that are actually best fit for that time against both our prediction of their availability and then your specification of your strategic goals. And then one by one reaches out to the next best match surgeon until it finds someone to fill that slot. And let me show you what that looks like. So here's an example. As you see in this example, a robotic slot became available on 11/25. So that's 4 weeks out. And the algorithm then strategically prioritized outreach to Dr. Hamilton first and his scheduler. So we're not waiting to see if a case happens to come or taking whatever case happens to come in next. We're actively going out and getting the best case, which I think, again, reduces that back and forth and figuring out what the OR schedulers have to do on a daily basis to do that. We're also interjecting some fun there. We're letting this doctor's team know that there's some scarcity, right? They've got to act in the next few hours. Otherwise, someone else is going to get the opportunity to pick up that time. And then in one click, that office can indicate their intention and let the team know that they're going to add a case and add a case into the operating room. I think the other thing that's great here is that it's true machine learning. So as a surgeon's practice evolves and changes based on how they respond or they don't respond, the machine learning algorithm is learning. Maybe they picked up a clinic somewhere. Maybe they're operating elsewhere. So how do I actually get really good at evolving with them rather than forcing them to do work to update a schedule? And as the surgeons interacted with the product, adding cases or indicating the time, I think the thing that really felt valuable to them was that the OR is working really hard, especially for those new career surgeons who don't have a lot of block time. The fact that the OR is like doing the work to help them get on the schedule feels like it's an olive branch and it builds relationship for the OR. Jane, would love any context you can share on this one as well.
This was really important to us as well for a couple of reasons. We are our tertiary quaternary center. We do our most complex surgical cases here. And we do some very high margin, high revenue cases here as well. So we certainly want to be able to strategically make sure that those surgeons are having access to open slots in the OR to help with getting those cases scheduled as easily as possible with no friction. Robotics is another important one to us because we currently have 2 robots. We're planning on purchasing a 3rd next year, and the time on those robots are a high commodity. So anytime we are able to get the time opened and notify a robotic surgeon that there is time open, they're greatly appreciating it. It was really interesting. I was giving our board of the hospital an update on this project and how excited we were about this project. And our president of our medical staff right now is actually an OB-GYN. And so she is in our ORs and she's doing surgeries. And there were a few questions, just wanting to know, how things are going. And we were, excited to tell them it was going really well. Our president of our medical staff made the comment during the board meeting, now I understand how we've been able to get more cases on the schedule in the OR. She said that they had a large number of surgeries come up, it seemed like at one time in their office. And she was wondering how that we were able to get these on as easily as we were. And certainly we attributed that success to Cuventus.
Thanks, Jane. Perfect. So if ATO is our push-based system, we also asked ourselves, how might we actually enable surgeons' offices to pull and find the exact time that was available? And this is key, across your system without ever picking up the phone. And what if we can even see the times their colleagues had that maybe their colleagues won't release back to you, but they might be willing to let their colleague book into? And then what if your independent docs had a way to do all of that booking in one platform, block and open time, giving you the exact procedure information you need without faxes and back and forth? And recognizing at St. Luke's, for instance, they have a mix. They've got employed docs and they have independent docs. And so there were different workflows for both. And so that's what we built with Time Finder. It's a reservation-like interface. If you can imagine a Kayak or an Expedia to streamline access outside of the EHR. So the goal really here is that any surgeon or scheduler can view and request time. And I think it's actually pretty beautifully designed. So I want to pull that up for a minute and just kind of show you what that looks like. So you're seeing an example here. And so let's say, I'm gonna move my thing here. So let's say you've got a patient that comes in, they want to have a surgery done by a robotic surgeon, and you're looking on Lando Norris's calendar. And so his scheduler pulls up his calendar. Now they see that, look, there's just no time in the next month for Lando. His blocks are on the robot is already booked up, but they really need to get this patient in for a robotic sigmoid colectomy. She's able to input the information. What you need to catch here that's not immediately obvious is that it auto-populates the wheels in to wheels out. So you're actually getting an accurate representation of the time that we're looking for. And then let's kind of look and see what comes back here. So what comes back is an array of times displayed across the different surgical suites. And what you can see in green actually is block time I might have available. In blue, what you see down here is the open time I have available. And then in orange, that's the colleague time. That's time that has not yet been released, but that we actually predict a colleague has that they may not need. The user can then sort and filter here as well to further refine their needs. And then what's not immediately obvious here is the way that the list is actually strategically sorted. So if you notice, it's just not chronological. What's happening is the algorithm is sorting for an optimal fit. So it's not just showing the times that are first. It's saying, let's go ahead and see, can we actually use some behavioral decision science by showing you the times that are most important first, so that's an easier fit for you. Or we can do things like this. You see these Q badges here, as we call them. We can top rank times here with a Q badge that are strategic. So this could be maybe because it's the optimal site of care for that surgery, making it easier for you to do site of care optimization. Or maybe it's like just a way for us to highlight times that are maybe historically hard for you to fill. My scheduler thing can then go in and they can select multiple times. So let's say they select this Wednesday 11/3, and then they go ahead and they also select this Monday 11/1. And then they can go down here to a checkout and click next step. And when they do that, they see the available times here. Now, what's kind of interesting here is they can drag and drop. So instead of selecting one time, they can drag and drop and select multiple times to prioritize what works for them. And then they can actually say, well, where within that window am I truly free? You know, I might have clinic that afternoon. And so I'm actually not free and after about 12 o'clock. And then the next day I may be free in the morning, free in the afternoon, but not in the morning. And so they can drag and drop to indicate what my true preferences are. And then that's kind of where the workflow ends if you're an employed surgeon. If you're an independent surgeon, though, you have the option to fill out a procedure order form. And in this way, collect all the information that's actually needed for the case in one go. When you click submit, I can show you what that looks like. The OR gets a notification, the surgeon's office gets a notification letting them know the case has been going to be sent to the OR. They click OK, and then the OR can actually pull up what's called an activity center. So they have a work list or a queue that shows them, here's the request that just came in, here's the ones that are pending, here's the ones that have been completed, and allows them to work through it. If they click on the procedure order form, they can see an electronic version of the procedure order form that gives them the information associated with the case, like COVID vaccination status, admin status, all those things that matter. But for your employed surgeons, again, they can just use Epic Case Request, which we do both of these with St. Luke's. And then there's also a workflow here to enable it within email. And so that was really important for us to have both workflows so that if your schedulers are accustomed to that workflow, that they can see all the case information and work through a work list directly within their standard operating procedure. So to keep us moving on here, I think the last piece on the core module that I wanted to talk about is insights. And really for this piece, that was around us asking the question, how might we put real-time transparent data at a leader's fingertips? And the goal was here so that they can actually manage accountability and have productive conversations, because we know the OR resource, it's just too precious. And because really both you all and surgeons are data-driven, but you don't have the time to wait or transform not quite right reports to get what you need. And so what we did was we curated those insights and we delivered them in real time directly to the surgeons and the periop leaders so they can both identify improvement opportunities and have a basis actually for data-driven conversations. And we switch over here to show you what that looks like. So you're seeing here the version that we call SPI, or Surgeon Practice Insights. And this is delivered directly to the surgeons and available in real time. And what it's doing is reinforcing the message of the nudges and also giving them at their fingertips their volume, their scheduling accuracy, their efficiency, and then also how they compare to their peers or colleagues. And I think for them, having this available to them, both pushed and real time, is meaningful. And so the next thing is that you can then see a different version here of insights that we curated actually for the periop leaders. And we call this one Opportunity Finder. And here you can see things like take a look at this. This would be trending lead time, which I think is important because lead time matters for a surgeon in that it's an indication of access. My lead time's going up. Maybe I don't have the access that I think I once had. And then you can also see things here that are, I think, difficult and time consuming for ORs to pull together. Again, available in real time, utilization, case scheduling accuracy, interesting things to look at here, like why is it that general surgery, 33% of their cases run long? Well, I can actually pop down here and take a look at the reason why. I can see that, well, maybe I should actually just start by looking at how we schedule umbilical hernias. And those are actually a common procedure and they run long 80% of the time and they never run short. So again, we're trying to reduce the burden of you having to think through the decisions and make it curated and make it available to you for you. And I think the last thing to kind of think about emblematically here would be on robotics. So robotics, super high value asset, constant source of conflict amongst your surgeon. And you want to take care about that and make sure that this is something that you're addressing because it was a repeat theme across all our partners. And so an example here would be one of our robotics program directors actually came to us and said, I'm having this constant problem in my robot. Can you help? And one of the things that we saw here as we started to look at this was that it's really interesting. They have a ton of non-robotics cases booked onto the robot. But then I think the big opportunity here was going beyond that. We talked about this framework before of identify opportunities, orchestrate actions, and manage accountability. How do you actually apply that here? So what we did was, let's build an AI system for this. Let's actually have an artificial intelligence look for 6 weeks on your schedule and see anytime you've got a non-robotics case booked in a robotics block. But let's also have it look and see, is there an opportunity to move that non-robotics case out of the robot room and into an open time without delaying that surgeon? So identifying that opportunity. And then can it then prospectively push a nudge to a surgeon? Like this is a real example here, a pelvic hematoma tying up 4 hours on the robot, but it didn't need to. Well, there's an opportunity to move it somewhere else. So this nudge is then delivered automatically to your OR director, who then can move that case out and orchestrate that action to create the availability. And then on the next slide, what you're seeing here is a manage accountability layer. How do we just then give you really nice and easy to see analytics to help you then manage your robotic room effectively and manage accountability associated with that? I think that also comes up really specifically here for other ways we manage accountability, like around block time. You're seeing a great example here where instead of going to governance committee and saying, surgeon, you didn't hit your target, what's going on here? What I can look to is actually pull up this, the surgeons can see themselves and say, look, your target was 75%. Your current block utilization is 58%. We nudged you 5 times over the course of this quarter, and congratulations, like you responded to 60%, and that's pretty good. You saw a 12% bump in your utilization because of that response. But had you responded to the other nudges, you would have had a 22% bump in utilization. It would have been well above what our target was. Again, the goal here is not to be punitive. What I want to do is give the surgeons a glide path to actually be successful and show them how they've already started to win through the platform, but how they can actually continue to win by going forward. And Jane, I'll pull up here for breath. Would love to get your feedback on this as well.
One of the things I was going to share earlier on was the fact that our number one group that is using this software is an orthopedic group. It is a large independent group. Our second highest user right now is an employed group. We are finding both our independent and our employed surgeons are really appreciating the ability to control a bit more their ability to get patients on the schedule. This was a huge sticking point for us. And one of the things that Cuventus has been very helpful in is being a part of this innovation cohort. We've helped them in helping to reduce that friction. In those independent groups, getting those cases on the schedule, being able to control that a bit more in their office. We were a part of getting that procedural form developed that is electronically submitted to our schedulers. And so not only is that good for the schedulers in the surgeon offices, it certainly is good for our schedulers as well. It has allowed us to be able to grow our volume, not have to grow the number of schedulers. And really, I see that they are working smarter, not necessarily harder now. So we have found that the applications have been working very well here at St. Luke's.
Yeah, and Jane, in fact, I remember something interesting you told me. I think you were looking at the Q1 to Q3 cases and the growth there. You mind sharing that with the group? Because I thought that was super fascinating when we talked last time.
Yes, thank you, David. So I was looking at some of our OR data, as I typically do, and as I was looking at our monthly case volumes in the main OR area, I noticed that we had seen a growth about 45 cases per month in the last 4 months compared to the first 3 months of the year. And I think we started actually using the software application around April. And so I called our business manager in the OR and I said, am I understanding this right? Because in the last 4 months, we've actually had less rooms open because that's when we really face these staffing challenges. And so I was trying to figure out, how is it that we've been able to do more cases in less rooms? Am I reading this data right? And she said, yes, we have. And so obviously I'm saying, do you think this is our Cuventus application? And she said, absolutely. So it has really proved out to us that it is allowing us to become more efficient and optimize the space we have.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jane. I love that. I love that anecdote. And so the last thing I want to talk about is our newest area of product development. And actually, this is part, I know Jane and I, we've spoken about this and we're looking at this actively with St. Luke's and we're excited about. And so this is our new surgical demand module. And as a surgeon, I'm actually really excited about this. And because I think this is a way to do something totally unique and it's exclusively part of the Cuventus platform. So really, let me just pull you back here. I think you'll really find this part interesting. So the question we asked ourselves here was, once you've leveraged the core modules to unlock access, then how do you optimize demand to drive incremental volume? And the idea here is to expand inbound referrals and hardwire growth. And to do this, you need more than EHR data. You actually need to have insights across the care continuum. So importantly here, we actually secured exclusive access to the best-in-class national claims data set with more than 300 million covered lives and data on surgeries actually down to the CPT level, outpatient referrals and oncology referrals and more. And the key here is that the data is actually tokenized at the source, which then enables us to link a bunch of disparate sources without transmitting PHI. And so, and then I think another thing for people that are familiar with claims data sets, instead of refreshing yearly or quarterly, we get it refreshed monthly. So we're working off claims that have dropped as soon as 8 days ago. And then what we said was, okay, great, we have this platform that we're great at using with data. Let's combine this EHR data, let's combine this claims data. And then what we might want to solve is, how do we actually think about the few inflection points in the care journey that if you could influence those, you could generate tremendous value. And so on the patient access side, starting on the left, what we found was that systems knew that they had coverage gaps, but they didn't know where and for what procedures. So this new data helps us identify access issues and actually target practice growth to fill them. Or consider on the referral side, most systems had network integrity issues, but they lacked the transparency necessary to begin thinking about how to change those behaviors. Some of you might have actually discovered that there are strategic service lines that you really want to grow because you want to become a center of excellence or maybe a destination program. But you found that it is a struggle to recruit the star surgeons from across the country to bring the right volume and expertise to actually go about creating that program. And then for your existing and especially your new surgeons that have a lot of great potential, it's hard to actually help them tap into not just the referral pool, but the pliable referral pool to start to hardwire some new referral patterns and allow them to specialize actually in the cases that they want to grow. And I think one of the things that really hits me close to home is what's tragic about that is that it's precisely what surgeons want. Surgeons don't want to do 100 hemorrhoidectomies just to do a single robotic hemicolectomy. They don't want to have to go through this back and forth. What they want is to specialize their practice and become the go-to in the market for thyroids or Whipples, and then align their practice so that instead of doing 10 of 50 different procedures, they are doing 50 of just 10. And that creates a win-win for everyone. It's better for patient safety, it's better for quality, and it's really better for surgeon and staff experience. And I think most importantly, it's better for patient outcomes. And so this delivers insights to improve network performance and to establish new referral patterns for surgeons looking to grow their practice. And we'll be able to use the marketing automation offered to your surgeons to actually do the same thing on the same way that we are now using marketing automation to market the times to the surgeons. We're considering how could we just flip the script? Let's market your surgeons and their services to the community directly of people that have the need and to the patients. So finally, on the network side, some of you know that you have surgeon splitting, and although it's difficult to exactly quantify where that's happening. Others of you may be in a situation where you're grappling with how do you actually drive systemness? How do you actually better utilize your ASCs? And not only being the top quality provider, but also figuring out how do you become the low cost one so that you become the provider of choice, not just for the patients, but for payers and employers in your market. And so here, what we're doing is we're creating ways to drive case consolidation and also thinking through how we can drive site of care optimization in line with leading trends in your market. So that takes us to impact. And I think at this point, I'll turn it back over to Jane.
Thank you, David. We're about 7 to 8 months into this process with Cuventus, but we are really excited about the impact that we are seeing already. We're seeing a meaningful release of the new block time, and then even more important, the utilization of that block, which is what we're all striving to do. We're currently sitting at about a 37% utilization of the release block, but an overall total utilization around 44%. We are seeing our average lead time of that release of block now up to 12 days. That's our average, which is that number that we had not ever seen in the past. And that number and getting it as long as possible is really important, so surgeons have time to get their patients prepared and patients have time to schedule the surgeries. So getting that lead time increased is really important to us as well. I think overall, we've been able to add around 279 new cases since we've launched the Cuventus application. As I mentioned earlier, one of our goals was improving our release block and the overall utilization. And through the Cuventus system, we have unlocked over 170 hours so far. And this is continuing to increase each month as we are really forcing the adoption of using the system. Our utilization is strong with 37% of the release block time being utilized. And this is translated to around 64 hours of released block time from the system alone. The cases have grown cumulatively, as you can see. And I think for every hospital and health system, you can look at the number of cases that have grown. You can attach your contribution margin per case, and you can do the math to see what that savings would look like to you and your organization. It is certainly something that we have done here, and it is certainly something that has been very meaningful for all of our senior system leaders. You can go on to the next slide, David.
For sure.
I think that, to summarize from my perspective, at the end of the day, our main goals to reduce the friction in our ORs, both internally and externally, we really do feel like we've accomplished that, and we're really excited about it. Our schedulers have more automation and are able to streamline their communication. As I shared earlier, I do believe they're working smarter and not harder. Our surgeons have more control over how they're scheduling their patients and able to proactively schedule. And then our staff in the OR are benefiting because cases are being scheduled accurately, and it is starting off their day and it's creating a smoother workflow for them day to day. Our patients are certainly benefiting because we're able to get them on the schedule sooner, and they're not having to wait several weeks to get their case completed. So, I think you can read the quotes up here, and I've sat and heard all of these quotes. The one that has been very powerful for me, the most recent one, is from the anesthesia chair on our surgical governance meeting. And as we were showing our last data at our last meeting, he made the comment in the meeting that he honestly didn't believe that this would work when we were sharing with our surgical governance leadership that we wanted to partner with Cuventus to try this. But he said it actually does. And coming from anesthesia, that is a really big win, because how they want to stay busy all the time, and they're the ones pushing us to fully optimize, so they're always busy.
Yeah, having an anesthesia colleague give a pat on the back to us feels great. Thanks, Jane. So great. So I would definitely say, though, kind of looking holistically across our innovation cohort partners, that the most rewarding part of our work has been the impact that we've been able to have with partners just like St. Luke's. And together we've been able to achieve what I would call like really significant and sustained results that meaningfully augment the business. Our partners have been able to add 2+ cases per OR per month, and that can translate to 20 to 70 cases per month in total for each of the health system partners we work with. Conservatively, even if you look at just like a 20 OR hospital, we would estimate that drives an incremental 100,000 in contribution margin monthly. So over $1 million annually, and much more for a larger system. And that really feels meaningful. Now, all of us know how you do the attribution there is really difficult. So we are trying, like everyone else, to figure out the best way, but those are some of kind of the conservative estimates. And I think the important thing is, as we think about how we've decided to price this solution on the market, we do it in such a way that there's an ROI of more than 4 to 1 and a break even that happens within a quarter of full launch. So for us, I feel like that makes it into a situation where it's doable for the clients, even for someone that's IT strapped and incredibly busy, which, to be fair, like each one of our partners is in that boat, IT strapped and incredibly busy, but they figured out ways to make this work. And on top of that, we're finding that we're increasing lead time, as Jane mentioned, for block release by about a week, and driving utilization of that release time to over 50% at some clients. It's almost double some of the best industry quoted standards. But before we transition to Q&A, I'm just being conscious of time, we wanted to share some of the lessons that we've learned working with our health system partners. In order to simultaneously drive growth and efficiency and utilization, you need to consider a number of factors that can make you successful. And I think first and foremost, you need to drive action for your users. Unlike using passive predictions, AI and behavioral science should make it easy for your surgical schedulers and stakeholders to take the right actions, such as releasing block time in advance or establishing a new referral pattern. Then you need to target strategic cases for growth. Instead of filling new open time with any available case, ML and process automation should make it easy again to directly target the right cases that you actually need in the moment, such as a strategic service line growth that you want to really index on, or the pressing care gap that you actually have in your community that you need to fill, or an upcoming robotic surgeon whose business you really want to attract. And finally, you need to be able to strengthen relationships with your surgeons and your teams. With real-time performance analytics, you can provide surgeons with insights and automation. And that's important to grow and for them to specialize their practices so that they can actually do what you want them to be. They can become the international brand surgeon and deepen their ties within your organization. And with that, I'll turn it back to Rebecca. Thank you for the Q&A.
Terrific. Thank you so much for all of your expertise, for sharing your story with us, Jane. Folks, please go ahead. Feel free to enter some questions if you have, or come off mute even and share your thoughts with us as we wrap up in our last few moments. I did just get a couple of questions to me, so I will start with those. So I think, well, the first, when we're starting to think about like investing in this type of technology solution, right? Oftentimes our organizations are asking themselves, should we like buy this, build, partner, et cetera. So could you tell us a little bit about how you kind of decided to go out and look for a partner specifically to solve this, or work together in the way that you've done?
Well, the why behind going external was our IT resources they just did not have the bandwidth to do this. I think we have a chief digital officer within the health system. So moving towards digital and technology is an important part of what we're trying to do strategically in the health system, but that is also creating a lot of work in IT. So she was the one that encouraged us and actually put us in contact with wentus, as she did want us to continue to pursue this idea. I truly believe, especially in perioperative spaces, AI and automation is really the way we are all going to be able to optimize in the future.
Yeah, that's a great point, or a segue, I would say, to the second question we have, which is really about staffing, right? So we know staffing is everyone's top of mind up at night issue right now. And you touched on this, I think, a little bit. Can you talk to us about what the implications have been for your staff on the ground, for any backfilling you've maybe not been able to do, just that generally how it's helped with some of those struggles?
It's helped the schedulers tremendously. I mean, they have immediately felt the relief of trying to get the cases scheduled as best as possible and as quickly as possible, because honestly, the schedulers and the surgeons' offices are now doing it for us, for all intents and purposes. So it has helped their workload quite a bit. I think in the ORs itself, it's just been fascinating. I mean, we are working with a reduced workforce just because we don't have enough staff. So we are having to shut down rooms as we only have enough staff some days to run certain numbers of rooms. But it has not impacted the volume of cases we're moving through. And that's what I'm finding so fascinating. So, as we continue to recruit and, add back the staff and open up more rooms, I'm just sitting here thinking of the volume of cases we're going to be able to even grow more as we get fully staffed down in the OR.
Yeah, I think that's so key. Like, the risk is when people know you're crunched for staffing, you don't want surgeons to essentially adopt the mindset of like, well, there's no access, there's no availability. It becomes increasingly important that you're up in front and forward with all the transparency that you have on what is available. Now we're down on staffing, but we still do have time. And let me make sure that we make that as transparent as possible so you can maximize that.
Great. And I guess the last question from me would just be what advice would you want to leave our folks with? Maybe things that you found that were particularly challenging in this process, and then maybe something that surprised you as kind of working out better or was easier than you expected. And Dr. Atashu, certainly want to hear what you've heard in those ways from the market generally.
I would just say briefly that the advice I would have is really look at digital and AI type solutions in your OR spaces. I'm really excited that our system was very supportive of us moving in this direction. And I truly believe it is here to stay, and it will only grow in the future. The recommendation I would have is, this is not one of those situations where you implement it and then you walk away. I mean, you have to continually look at your data, continually, encourage those that are laggers in using the technology, celebrate those that are doing a really good job at it, because, our goal is to get everyone fully on board and fully using this in helping them get their cases scheduled in a timely way. So I would just encourage it to always be on your radar, always have a focus on this. It's not something that once you've implemented, you can just walk away from.
Yeah.
Somebody also wants to know, before you jump in, Dr. Atashu, if you're using Cubentus in other areas of your hospital operations.
We actually are. We are actually using Cubentus with throughput. We have a big initiative going on with throughput that Cubentus is our partner in.
Yeah. And St. Luke's, they use our inpatient module. They use our command center solution as well. And their digital officer has led a large transformation, and we're a part of that, working together with her.
Terrific. All right. Any other closing thoughts?
I just wanted to say, I think the one thing is kind of learnings from the market. I think everyone is busy and struggles for this. I think what I've found is that it is possible. Like, the lift associated with doing this isn't tremendously high. You can do it, but at the same time, like to Jane's point, you do have to resources. You do have to think to yourself, like, I'm committed to doing this. And if you commit to doing this, then a partner can come in and really come alongside you. And I think what happens over time is you create a virtuous cycle. If you can actually offer something that ends up delighting your surgeons, and that virtuous cycle includes drawing in new cases, using data, and then using the market understanding, and then also providing access for those cases when they come in, and then actually optimizing across your sites of care and reducing the workload for your teams, that creates a virtuous cycle that once you stamp it out, it keeps paying dividends down the line. And I think as we think about this relationship with Jane, it wasn't kind of like one and done. We don't just drop in and then leave. There is like a continual lean in, and we want to continue to build that momentum until you set a foundation that just kind of reproduces itself.
Perfect. Well, that brings us just to the top of the hour. Thank you so much, Jane, Dr. Atashu, Anthony, for joining us today, for your partnership at Cubentus and sharing your story with us. And thank you all for spending an hour of your busy weeks with us as well. We look forward to seeing you at future Academy events and hope you have a great rest of your week. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.